In the fast food world, where giants like McDonald's and Burger King reign supreme, there is a hidden treasure of nostalgia and maritime flavors. Long John Silver's stood as a beacon for those seeking a taste of the high seas on their plates for decades. But in recent years, this once iconic seafood chain has been caught in the turbulent waters of decline, struggling to stay afloat in a sea of changing consumer preferences and fierce competition. So batten down the hatches and hoist the anchor as we delve into Long John Silver's intriguing story and its challenges in a sea of modern dining options. But before we dive into the depths of this fascinating topic, make sure to hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. This way, you won't miss a moment of our captivating journey ahead. Long John Silver's is a well-known American fast food restaurant chain renowned for its specialization in serving seafood dishes. The origins of this establishment can be traced back to 1929 when Jerry Lederer took a bold step by inaugurating a humble hamburger stand named the White Tavern Shop. Located in the quaint town of Shelbyville, Kentucky, which boasted a population of around 4,000 residents, this venture was launched during a period of significant historical challenges, including the Great Depression, followed by World War II. Despite the adverse circumstances of the era, this eatery not only survived but also thrived. The modest and uncomplicated setup of Jerry Lederer's White Tavern Shop proved surprisingly successful during the challenging times of the Great Depression. It flourished to the point where it expanded into a chain of 13 locations. However, the onset of World War II brought about food shortages and labor constraints, which ultimately compelled him to shut down most of these establishments. Despite post-war uncertainties, Lederer remained an astute entrepreneur. Recognizing a new opportunity on the horizon, he embarked on a transformational journey by significantly changing his business model. There are a couple of interesting points to note here. First, he rebranded his company and chose Jericho, a clever play on his name, Jerry. Secondly, he embarked on a new restaurant venture under Jericho's ownership. This restaurant was distinct from the previous one and was humorously named "We're Not a Long John Silver's Yet." However, his entrepreneurial spirit didn't stop there. He introduced another restaurant called Jerry's Five and Dime, which was quite innovative for its time as it specialized in offering roast beef sandwiches. Jerry has been in the business for 17 years, a decade and a half before Arby's existed. However, Jerry's restaurant woes persisted, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the root of his problem was the 15 cents he insisted on charging for his sandwiches. Roughly a year later, Jerry's eatery experienced continued poor sales, prompting him to forsake the roast beef dishes and pivot towards a more conventional menu centered on hamburgers. Hamburgers might be perceived as unexciting and the path of least resistance in the culinary realm. While they offer a sense of security in terms of customer appeal, they also carry the risk of being too commonplace. With everyone else jumping on the burger bandwagon, the odds of distinguishing oneself and reaching significant heights in the industry seem notably diminished. In 1963, Jerry passed away due to a heart attack, and at that point, Warren Rosenthal assumed control of the company. Warren had been associated with the company nearly from its inception, initially starting as a restaurant manager and gradually progressing through the ranks until he reached the position of CEO. After Jerry's passing, he assumed the role of the president and proprietor of Jericho, mirroring his previous endeavor to establish a roast beef business many years prior. In 1969, Warren Rosenthal recognized a potential market niche for a different kind of fast food establishment, one focusing on seafood. As you might have guessed, they launched this venture in Lexington, Kentucky, named Long John Silver's. During rapid expansion in the fast food industry, Long John Silver's emerged as a standout among many fast food restaurants, offering a unique and distinctive approach. They needed the tools and expertise to meet requests because the original idea caught the general population's interest. They knew franchising in the restaurant industry, and since their company recently went public, they had cash available. A few years later, there were a lot of Long John Silver's, and by the conclusion of their initial period in 1979, there were more than 1,000. Until 1989, they kept expanding during the 1980s, quickly growing to become the biggest fast food seafood restaurant in the country. During that period, they had established approximately 1,500 outlets, approaching the status of a nationwide brand. Nonetheless, apprehensions regarding the company's future arose. The escalating competition made fish increasingly available to consumers through similar quick service eateries or frozen microwavable fish products offered by supermarket companies. However, simultaneously, the expenses associated with procuring the fish they served increased, reducing profits. Adding to their challenges, the overall economic conditions were declining. The culmination of these factors drove down their stock price, triggering a sequence of events that eventually culminated in the sale of the company. They are inclined to label this as the commencement of their downturn. The initial rationale for this assertion stems from their leveraged buyout in 1989. During this period, a cohort of company executives collaborated with a few investment organizations to privatize the company, marking its first foray into private ownership in 2 decades. This transition facilitated through a leveraged buyout amounting to $620 million. The new owners appointed fresh leadership who promptly initiated alterations to the company's operations. Among the most notable changes was a heightened emphasis on Long John Silver's restaurants. By 1991, Long John Silver's comprised the entirety of their business to the extent that they even went as far as changing the company's name from Jericho to Long John Silver's Restaurants. They did transition into a private company, reportedly achieving record-breaking sales figures and expanding their franchise network. However, the burden of debt significantly complicated their operations. In 1998, they initiated bankruptcy proceedings, revealing $457 million in debt compared to just $329 million in assets, leading to negative equity, which is invariably unfavorable. The company's CEO at that time voiced that sales and profits were both on an upward trajectory, yet the substantial debt load ultimately proved impossible. The subsequent year saw their acquisition by the company that owned A&W. While not much transformation occurred, it did unite the two brands under the same ownership. 3 years later, in 2002, A&W and Long John Silver's were acquired together in a $320 million package deal by a company that later became known as Yum Brands. They attempted a strategy where they frequently co-located the two restaurant brands, primarily pairing them with A&W locations. However, it doesn't appear to have yielded significant success. In general, the count of Long John Silver's locations consistently declined each year they were under the ownership of this company. Starting at over 12,001 when they were acquired, it dwindled to less than 1,000 when they were sold. This marked the first instance of having fewer than 1,000 locations since the 1970s. In 2011, they changed ownership as a group of franchisee leaders and additional investors acquired them. A parallel situation unfolded with another entity during the same period, driven by Yum Brands' desire to prioritize their more prominent and thriving brands. The last factor contributing to their difficulties lies in the nutritional value of their offerings. Most of their sales over the years have stemmed from items like deep-fried chicken, fish, and Hushpuppies, essentially consisting of deep-fried cornmeal concoctions. They have consistently grappled with the challenge of transitioning towards healthier food options. They began their journey towards healthier options by introducing grilled and baked items in the early 1990s, which initially received a positive response. However, in 2013, the Center for Science in the Public Interest declared their Big Catch meal the unhealthiest in America. For a single meal, it contained more than 1,300 calories, had 3,700 milligrams of sodium, 19 grams of saturated fat, and the primary concern was the presence of 33 grams of trans fat, which appears to exceed the American Heart Association's recommended daily maximum by more than 16 times. They were bestowed with an unfavorable title, leading to a significant amount of negative media coverage, which unfortunately adversely affected the public's perception of the brand. Subsequently, they embarked on a damage control initiative, and a few months later, they announced that they would remove trans fats from their menu. Ongoing efforts are to revamp various aspects of the operation, including redesigning uniforms, enhancing the drive-thru experience, and even reimagining the restaurant locations. Additionally, they have introduced fresh menu items, focusing on offering healthier alternatives to cater to a broader range of customer preferences. As we conclude this captivating journey into Long John Silver's story, we are reminded of the heritage and nostalgia associated with this restaurant. Despite the challenges it faces, the allure of maritime flavors and the longing for a taste of the high seas will always have a place in the hearts of seafood enthusiasts. However, do you concur with their explanation for their decrease in performance? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for joining us on this exploration, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful stories and updates.